Dory, do you see anything?
Ah! Something's got me!
That was me. I'm sorry.
Who's that?
Who's that? Who could it be? It's me.
Are you my conscience?
Yeah. I'm your conscience. We haven't spoken for a while. How are you?
Can't complain.
Yeah, good. Now, Dory, I want you to tell me, do you see anything?
I see a light.
A light?
Yeah, over there. Hey, Conscience, am I dead?
No, I see it too. What is it?
It's so pretty.
I'm feeling happy, which is a big deal for me.
I want to touch it.
Ooh. Hey, come back. Come on back here.
I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna swim with you.
I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna be your best friend. Good feelings gone.
A sudden ponderance of the day's events. To be kept in a state of naive wonderment is to be kept illusioned and disillusioned. In a state of mystical fasci-nation, or naiveté, is to be caught with the pants down while blinded by the light. Like a deer in the headlights, easy to sway, convince, and manipulate. To not be grounded in any objective truth, such as the surface of the earth, is to be without roots, and thus blown every which way, like a leaf in the wind, with every passing fad. Your house blown asunder with every huff and puff, for it was built upon the sand. I'm not referring to the living mystery as it's observed in the intrinsic patterns of nature, upon which the rock is built, but to the alluring trance-end-dance in our age of decadence, with its bright lights, big city, and the glitz and ritz of our modern-day bread and circus, known as metropolice, which leeches our attention with its perpetual distractions, like insects attracted to the ultraviolent light which administers their fate. Like moths to the flames, we are preoccupied with games and bloodsport, concerned with nothing more than attending the next major sex, drugs, and rock and roll festival.
No! Harry, no! Don't look at the light!
I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
Point number 2, being awake means knowing that the truth is singular, eternal, and objective, and that truth exists completely independently of our perception of it. And this is something that is completely different than many New Age takes on what it means to be in touch with truth, because they don't see it as something that is singular or objective. And that's extremely important to understand.
The great evil, in my humble opinion, which haunts our enterprise, and I say this realizing I'm setting the fox among the chickens, the great evil that has been allowed to flourish in the absence of mathematical understanding is relativism. And what is relativism? It's the idea that there is no distinction between shit and shinola. That all ideas are somehow operating on equal footing. So one person is a chaos theorist, another is a follower of the revelations of this or that New Age guru, someone else is channeling information from the Pleiades, and we have been taught that political correctness demands that we treat all these things with equal weight. Because we have no mathematical ability, no logical ability, we don't know how to ask the questions that expose some positions as preposterous, trivial, insulting to the intelligence, and unworthy of repetition. So we are very comfortable bashing science and flailing away at that, but that isn't our enemy. Science is capable of undertaking its own reformation and critique and has been engaged in that fairly vigorously for some time. The enemy that will really subvert the enterprise of building a world based on clarity is the belief that we cannot point out the pernicious forms of idiocy that flourish in our own community. And this problem is growing worse all the time. I mean, just pick up a copy of Magical Blend or Shaman's Throne, and you will discover an appeal to the level of intellect that makes what's going on with television advertising look like a meeting at the Princeton Institute of Advanced community. We are willing to take on the karma involved in argument and discourse that actually gores somebody's ox. So that at the end of the day, iridology or Mormonism or some other form of institutionally supported foolishness lies in shreds on the floor. We consider this politically incorrect. I can feel the tension in this room because people sense I might gore their particular ox. If we had learned mathematical logic or reason or rules of evidence, when someone approaches us excited to inform us that the ruins of Lemuria have been spotted in the deep sea off Big Sur, or something like that, we would be able to respond to that with the contempt it deserves. I had a conversation about this recently with someone who, if I had to describe their job category, I would describe them as mafioso. And I said, what do you think of the abduction phenomenon? And without hesitation, this person said, there are just so many foolish people in the world. And to me, all of these things are intelligence tests. And the people who pass the intelligence test are not worrying about pro bono proctologists from other star systems showing unannounced in their bedrooms. So, we have perfected politeness. We have perfected the ability to listen to damn foolishness without betraying by so much as the flick of an eyebrow that we realize what we're in the presence of. Now I think it's time to refine our mathematical skills, learn to think straight, and not be afraid to denounce the pernicious forms of foolishness which are vitiating the energies of our community and making us appear marginal and absurd in the discourse about truly transforming society.
So, there's something very important about what's going on in the educational system right now, and that's that there's no such thing as objective reality. Hey, that's just your opinion. everybody is entitled to their opinion about how things are. No one's worth more than anyone else. No one's values are more important than anyone else. No one's abilities are more important than anyone else. Of course, no one's more important than anyone else, but no one's reality is real. It's all completely changeable. It's amorphous. Even mathematics. Even the certainty of mathematics is now being messed around with by those who are teaching sustainable development. Hey, if you think 1 + 1 = 5, well, let's really think about that. Because you know, you're valued here and your opinion is important to us. So what this does is it creates that uncertainty about
what is real.
So when I tell you that what I'm telling you right now is the truth, and you can check it out for yourself, well, hey, that's just my opinion.
So what is truth? You know, whenever you bring up this topic to the average person, they'll say, well, what's truth anyway? And again, just like I tried to demystify the concept of the occult, I really want to try to demystify this concept of truth, because too many people have a completely mystified notion of what truth is. It's way over the top, it's way too complicated, and it doesn't really capture what truth means. All right? We have to simplify. First thing is, truth is simple. It's not complex. It's not overly mystified. It's very simple. It's something that is objective, meaning that it is not based on the perceptions of human beings. It's not based on thought. Truth is not based on how we think. It's not based on how we feel, period. It's not based on our perceptions. It exists independently of our perceptions. All right? Human perception is capable of wavering wildly off the course of truth. Truth does not waver. Truth stays right where it is, regardless of whether you recognize or perceive it or not. It is simply that which is. It's always been there. Like I said, it's always been there. It's always going to be there. It is there now. It is simply that which is. It is that which has occurred and is occurring. Truth is that which has occurred in the past and is occurring right now in the present moment. And that's it. That's all that it is. Very demystified conceptualization of truth, which is lacking in a lot of spiritual studies. All right? People want to make it the totality of the knowledge of the mind of God. You know? It's too mystified of a concept, and it's also too complexified. You'll never get to the essence of what it really means with that kind of a concept in your mind. Most people will say, well, if that's what it is, why bother? We'll never get to that, you know? And that's what stops people from moving forward in pursuit of truth in many cases. So keep this demystified concept in mind as we move forward. The second part of truth is that it is singular. There is no such thing as my truth, his truth, her truth, their truth. There is only the truth. There is only one way that things have been and actually are now. Okay? The past cannot be changed. It's what was. That's what led to the present, what is. That's not up for interpretation. That's what has occurred. Okay? There's only one way that happened, because it's already done. It is the past, all right? So there's only one way that things actually are. We can either align our perceptions to it, or we could not align our perceptions to it, period, all right? And that exists independently from perception. It's a very hard thing for the ego to hear. I recognize that. This is one of the main points of contention that many people will take up with my work as well. But let me see if I could explain how truth is different than perception, okay? This is a real simple model, this graph, okay? And I try to keep my graphics as simple as possible as well. If you look at these white lines here as just being a simple representation or a model of truth, which does not waver, which is just the way things are, the actual truth of the matter, okay? And then you look at these waveforms in different colors as a person's perceptions, okay? And how the perception is coming into contact with truth at these points. All right? Now, this is called a low frequency wave. A low frequency means the wave oscillates about its axis less frequently than a higher frequency wave. All right? So a low frequency perception or consciousness is going to be in contact with truth at much lower frequency, less frequently. All right? So this wavelength of light, all right, is lower frequency than this wavelength of light. This person's consciousness, if we're likening this model to a human consciousness, would be low frequency, low consciousness. This person, their consciousness has been stepped up to a higher frequency. It is now in more alignment with truth. So the person's consciousness is intersecting with that which does not waver much more frequently, hence a higher frequency. This person's consciousness is intersecting with it at many, many, many different places along the line. If you were to take that and go to infinite frequency, you would have a line, or in other words, a line meant with truth. You would be intersecting the truth at all times and places. Your perception would not waver from that which is. It would recognize that which is readily and accurately. And that's what I'm talking about by perception. And that's what determines whether consciousness is low or high, whether it is in alignment with that which is, in recognition of that which is or not. And not everybody is going to be there all the time. Even the person with very high consciousness, their perception may slip out of alignment with truth, but it will do so less frequently than other people's perception slipping out of alignment with truth. Some people live their entire lives and barely ever touch that white line at all. Okay? But the point here is that perception is not reality. What our work here on the earth is to align our perception to reality. And an ideology that makes this almost impossible, that unfortunately is on the rise and is propagated nonstop, 24 hours a day by the New Age communities in today's world, is known as solipsism. Now, how many people have ever heard the term solipsism before? That's phenomenal. I've never asked that question and had a room full of people, give a response like that the vast majority, about 90% of the room has heard the term. That's a good sign, actually. Maybe people are becoming aware of what this is and the danger that it's doing. Let's just look at the etymology of the word for a moment. Solipsism comes from the Latin adjective solus, meaning alone, and the Latin pronoun ipse, meaning self. So if we put them together, it's all alone by oneself. I'm the only one here, in other words. Okay? Everything revolves around me. All right? It's the ideology that only one's mind is ever sure to exist. That knowledge of anything that's outside of one's mind is unsure. I can't possibly know that any objective truth exists because I'm only experiencing my consciousness subjectively. So how could anything about the external world or its workings truly be known? Or certainly even if I were to know it, how could I possibly communicate it with anybody else? That's what solipsism is, the idea that there is no such thing as truth. Truth is just totally a subjective thing that exists only in the mind. It's nothing objective. Nothing can actually be known. It's all just random perception and whims, that's all, And if that's the ideology, I would suggest you could be led to buy anything, to buy into absolutely anything, which is why dark occultists want to propagate this ideology. I mean, desperately want to propagate it. I was involved in the dark occult in my past, and I'm telling you, they themselves consider this a sin for themselves. They never, ever, ever want to fall into this ideology for themselves. So a dark occultist would communicate to other dark occultists and say, don't ever buy into solipsism, all right? But propagate it to everybody out there that you want to control. They want to propagate this ideology, not buy into it themselves. And they do it very effectively. And they're doing that through the New Age movement. Solipsism is both a false religion and a defining hallmark of spiritual infancy. This is what it means to be completely asleep, in other words, to be completely unconscious, not having started the journey in consciousness at all. So departing from this diseased ideology is a surefire sign that you're beginning to awaken. Okay? It's a surefire sign at the very beginning of human maturity and spiritual development. Those who are truly awake fully understand that objective reality absolutely does exist and that the truth absolutely can be known. Truth is knowable. The universe was not put here to torment us endlessly, such that we can never know anything and constantly be tormented by that fact. If that's your worldview, it's a diseased and poisoned worldview. Truth is here, it always has been here, and we are capable of discovering it and knowing it. Unfortunately, most of humanity is trapped in what I call the mental schism, where they're totally imbalanced toward one brain hemisphere or another, and that imbalance dynamic is held in place through mind control. The intellect, the masculine component of consciousness, if that's way too overused and we're always living in that state of imbalance, if that part of the personality or that part of the brain is chronically dominant, then what manifests are conditions like rigid skepticism, not taking in any new information or evidence, okay? What I call scientism. This is the worship of science as a religion, as the only possible medium for truth to be known, okay? Atheism, solipsism, moral relativism, which we're going to talk a lot about later, social Darwinism, eugenics, and authoritarianism. And then if we're in total right brain imbalance toward the feminine hemisphere of the brain, if that part of the brain is chronically dominant and we have no balance with the left brain as well, we'll manifest conditions in the personality such as total naivete, blind belief, religious extremism, just being a blind follower or believer. Solipsism can also manifest when you're in right brain imbalance, just as left brain imbalance. Unworthiness, self-loathing, addictive personalities fall into this category of the brain as well. And then perhaps most dangerous, following orders and being a willing slave, not resisting when there's dominance that is being exerted over you by others. So this knowing the true self is about getting out of those mental schisms. You're not in one of those forms of imbalance or the other. You're in holistic thought, or what I call free think. What will also keep you in a state of being able to be controlled and not knowing the true self is a worldview schism. And again, too many people are in one of these sides or another as well. The worldview of randomness, that everything is just a cosmic accident. The universe is a grand accident. There's no creator. There's no underlying intelligence in nature. Okay? Everything was just a cosmic accident for no purpose. There's no such thing as the spirit. There's no such thing as morals that are true, that are objective. There's no such thing as natural law, which we're going to talk about a lot. There's no purpose to existence other than to continue to exist. Survival. What does that sound like? Somebody who's rooted in the R complex of the brain because of their left brain hemispherical imbalance. Hallmarks of scientism, hallmarks of atheism, hallmarks of totalitarianism. The opposite form of worldview schism imbalance is determinism. The fact that there is no moral outcry about all drug laws, about all tax laws, okay, is proof that people are entrapped in a state of moral relativism in their own minds. And this idea is satanic, okay? And I'm not asking you to believe that. I'm telling you because, again, my background comes from dark occultism. I know what I know largely because I worked with the people who are in control of the world for 10 years of my life. And I'm telling you, moral relativism is one of the main foundational tenets of Satanism. It is one of the foundational tenets of the satanic religion, which is what's ultimately controlling this world. All right? If you embrace moral relativism, the idea that man gets to decide what's right or wrong for himself, you're going into a prison and you're staying there. That is the law of freedom. Get used to it and get over it. Understand that that's just how the universal laws of consciousness work. And as soon as we understand that, we'll start building a world that's going to be increasing in freedom because the people of that society will be increasing in true morality. Moral relativism is guaranteeing the slavery of the human species. It's a very dangerous trend. And it's not just being propagated by the powers that should not be in this world, or the dark occult. It is being propagated by the so-called New Age movement. The claim that the difference between right and wrong, it's dualistic. Mark, you're being so dualistic. No, I'm exercising discernment and judgment over what will move us forward as a species and what will not. Over what will lead to freedom and what cannot lead to freedom. Such thinking, moral relativism, is the very dynamic that is enslaving our species. And until we are out of it, we are not going to be out of the chains that bind us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a break right there. That's the end of our first section. Thank you.